Welcome to the Pestle, reviewing and breaking down movies to look for insights into the movie-making process. Hosted by the Apocalypse. Finally, we're all outside playing again. Let's blow out the candles and start the show.
Welcome everybody to the Pestle. Today's show is brought to you by Death Rattle Dazzle. Which of the Quick Pick triplets did it? Find out in the hit Broadway musical from Oliver Putnam, Death Rattle Dazzle. Tickets on sale now. Welcome everyone to the Pestle. I am Wes.
And I'm Todd.
And today we are joined by a special guest from the Down Under, underneath the Down Under, Joe Howes, coming in from New Zealand. How you doing, Joe?
Hey, everybody.
Dude, so what are you up to now? I know you have a background in programming and visual effects. Give everyone a taste of what it is, you know, that makes Joe Joe.
Makes Joe Joe. So I work in visual effects on the technical side. So it's we make the instruments, and then the artists are the musicians who actually breathe life into those instruments. And lately I've been making it my mission in life to point out that those, you know, that army of visual effects credit you see at the end of every movie, it's those people that make the visual effects incredible. It's not the computers. It's person-generated CGI. The computers are just the tool. But the studio Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes just came out. I thought our work on that was just fantastic.
Agreed.
Yeah, so that's what's going on. And then a side note is Heather and I both got to scream and yell and do crowd sounds for Furiosa, a Mad Max story that's going to be in theaters in a couple of weeks. So if someone's going crying or going listen carefully, and you might hear my voice or Heather's voice.
Oh my God. So the technical side is really interesting to me because it's easy to not understand how much of an impact that can make for the other side, right? The creatives who are going in and whatever, animating a super mutant. So can you briefly, are you able to, maybe I should start with, tell like one victory that you gave your team that saved them hours and hours and hours and hours of time through just creating a tool, for instance?
Yeah, there's, I don't know if I can talk about, there's a tool that is, it's just the best story. I don't think I can give the details of the tool, but our studio did visual effects on Naiad, which was a film on Netflix last year about Diana Naiad, who swam from Cuba to Florida in like 7 attempts. And that's you know, one of those shows where it was really, really quick turnaround. And my friend Chris White, who's just an amazing visual effects supervisor, used a tool that my team wrote that really, really allowed him to quickly ramp things up. I'd love to give details on it because it's such a cool tool, but it's he at the Christmas party this year, he told me, man, that tool really helped us. So.
It's interesting because there's so much that goes into that whole pipeline, just to broadly speak about visual effects incorporated into a film, right? Because, you know, whatever, David Fincher goes out and he shoots this movie about, you know, an alien running rampant, right? Alien 3, for instance. And, you know, he has a vision for, you know, I have some puppetry, but there's going to be a few shots where there's no puppet that can explode, right? So we're going to need to figure out how to make this thing explode. Okay, well, we're going to tempt in this doll, and maybe that'll have some of the visual details, and that can be a reference point. But then we're just going to figure out the cut, the edit, and then we're going to send some weird frames off to a visual effects team, whatever, ILM or something, and these guys are going to ingest it, and that process of just ingesting so that multiple teams can go through and put their fingers on this one frame or this one scene, that's a whole process of figuring out, like, how do we all make sure we're working on the same thing without interrupting each other?
Yep.
Like, how many ways is there to screw that up? I guess, just to broadly talk about the topic.
Countless ways. There's new-ish. It's actually about, I don't know, 6-7 years old at this point. A new scene description file format invented by Pixar, and they open sourced it a while back, and it's called USD, which stands for Universal Scene Description. And I think all the big visual effects houses are kind of building tooling, to work with USD. And the whole idea is that you can describe all the different parts of the pipeline, any part of the pipeline as you want in this one file format, and different teams can be making different changes. And in these USD containers, being able to not step on each other's toes, and yet in one place having kind of a holistic view of a shot or of a scene as it moves through a pipeline. As you can imagine, it's pretty complicated stuff, but it's one of those standards that have emerged, from all the VFX vendors, all trying to work with each other and make it as fast and efficient as possible. So, I mean, it's gotten way better than it was, back in the aughts or the 2010s. But yeah, there's still a lot of places where there can be inefficiencies. But the industry is definitely working towards that.
Are you saying that, like, if one team is working on an aspect of a scene, and another team is working at the same time, they can kind of see and talk to each other through this tool? Like, I can see what so-and-so team is doing and what they've, like, is it updating it in real time? Like, explain it a little bit better.
It's more of a standard for a file format. So it's not a tool.
Oh, okay.
It's just an agreement of the way that all of that data is stored on disk, such that all the different studios can build their tooling on top of it, and then take that file and go, okay, Crafty Apes turn something over to another studio, and they can just start working on it. Whereas there's normally some amount of translation and sometimes manual. Artists have to spend time doing translation. If we can agree to a format, then it becomes really easy. Just throw this in, load it up, and go. It's evolving now. I don't think it's completely integrated everywhere it could be, but and the idea it's an agreement by a committee, and there's all kinds of people working on it. It's not perfect yet, but it's getting there. It's a pretty cool technology.
I always find it interesting that the market can coordinate on things like that, whether it's some file format like that or whatever, JPEG, and there's these kind of unencumbered groups of people who come together and say, we need to make a container file that works across platforms, whatever, MP4, right? And it's going to be on the H.264 codec. And man, what's really great is H.265. Now let's see if we can get everyone. And it's just everyone kind of coordinating at the same time. And yet sometimes there are stories about companies that coordinate for not necessarily the betterment of humanity. And with that in mind, what are we covering today, Todd?
Nicely done.
Thanks.
Wow. I saw that gear turning in your head. How are we going to get it? Today, nicely done. Today we are covering Fallout on Amazon Video. So if you haven't seen this show, please pause this episode and go watch it, because we're going to spoil a bunch of stuff, especially if you haven't played the game.
Yeah, we'll look at a bunch of things. We'll definitely look at a ton of story and writing, Lucy's character arc, great exposition that happens, and I'm going to beat it over your heads with it. I think it's just one line that's so cool. And then guess Joe Howes is going to solve cold fusion for us during an off-screen scene, and other such stuff and things and stuff.
Yeah, I'm laughing because it's probably not far off. I mean, this guy probably has a plan. So a quick synopsis of the series. In a future post-apocalyptic Los Angeles brought about by nuclear decimation, citizens must live in underground bunkers to protect themselves from radiation, mutants, and bandits. It's created by Geneva Robertson-Dworet and Graham Wagner, featuring Ella Purnell as Lucy MacLean, Walton Goggins as Cooper Howard and the Ghoul, Frances Turner as Barb Howard, Aaron Moten as Maximus, Moises Arias as Norm MacLean, Leslie Uggams as Betty, Sarita Choudhury as Moldaver, and Johnny Pemberton as Thaddeus.
My name is Lucy MacLean, and I'm an active contributor to the well-being of my community. Repair skills. I enjoy participating in the Young Pipefitters Association, which keeps me active. Science skills. Obviously, mine are nothing compared to my dad's, but I always relish a challenge. Speech skills. My primary passion is teaching American history with a focus on ethics. I also participate in gymnastics club, fencing team C, intermediate phys ed, and I dabble in riflery. Though I'm not very good. In my personal time, I enjoy taking walks and watching movies with my dad. Gardening, also with my dad. And participating in my family book club. We're still trying to get my brother on board. He'll come around when he's ready. My reproductive organs are intact, my hygiene well maintained, and yet I have been unable to find a suitable marriage partner. At least one I'm not related to. And we have rules about that for a reason.
Oh, I love
Perfect place to start.
I love so much about that, right? Like, one, it's kind of interesting that she's downplaying some of her skills, right? She's a intermediate phys ed, and she's doing like melee combat training and like about to snap someone's arm in a submission hold. And then she's like, I'm not very good at the rifle stuff, and it's all bullseyes. So like she's downplaying her athleticism in order to not try to off-put a potential suitor, which is really fascinating, and some of these little undertones that I think are happening throughout the series. But that said, Todd, I know you haven't played the game, and so I'm curious how Fallout struck you as just the tone. The violence is certainly not held back. What do you think of this world, man?
I adore it. It's so good. I love dystopian stuff. Like we've already established that on this podcast many a time. Dystopian and sci-fi, it's all like fair game for me. And I think partially the reason is because I can watch it and have no idea where it's going. Like if you watch drama, or you watch, some romantic comedy or something, you can decipher or at least ascertain or kind of say, I think it's going to go like this. But in a show like this, you have no idea where it's going, especially if you haven't played the game. I think maybe if you have played the game, you might, but I don't know because I haven't played the game. But I don't think so. I think it from what I've heard, it basically made its own kind of story, its own kind of like world, but paid homage to the games in a way where if you have played the game, you can feel I guess vindicated. However, so yes. Absolutely adored it. That first episode. So we were, I think, on a call or something. We were maybe chatting after an episode one time, and right, or maybe we were talking to Scott or something.
Scott, we went to a movie, and we were like,
we went to the movie.
Yeah,
we went to a movie when I was visiting in Austin, and we were talking about Fallout, and I said, yeah, I started trying to watch it, but you mentioned something about that. You mentioned that at the beginning that I missed, and I said, I missed that, and you were like, you need to go start over that episode over, because that's a really important thing that you miss. And I was like, oh, okay, because I only got to watch like the first 10 minutes, and then I paused it because my kids were around, and it got really super violent at the beginning, and so I had to like pause it. But what a way to start a series! I mean, think about the Red Wedding at the beginning. That's what it felt like. That's exactly what it felt like. And so, don't bore us, get to the chorus. It was just really incredible the way that they didn't hold back from the violence. They kind of prepared you for anything can happen from here, and we want you to not know at all what might. And I really felt like that. I thought that the acting was fantastic. The where is it? I'm so bad with names. Ella Purnell. I adore her character in this show. I mean, obviously, the elephant in the room is Walton Goggins. He's otherworldly in here, and I adore any scene he's in. But at least so far, I feel like the scenes that I really like him in are not when he's the Ghoul. I really like. I like those scenes too, but I like seeing his past life, before the bombs went off. And so when I get to see those and I get to see the flashbacks, I'm in it. I love him. But Lucy's arc is so beautiful beautifully written. I mean, she's constantly berated with things and people and creatures and whatever trying to kill her, and she is so oblivious to it in so many ways that it's like she's lucky, but at the same time she is prepared. You know, she's very good at a lot of things that she needs out in the real world, but doesn't even know it because she just is so aloof. But every time she's engaged in something like that, you can see a little bit of resilience that she gets from her character gets a little bit more. She survived this. She gets a little bit more resilience. She ends up having to cut the head off the guy to take his head. Can you imagine her doing that? Like right after walking out of the bunker? Like, no way. No way. But she knows that she has to do it. So she's like, okay. And then she does it. But she has this air of kind of young innocence always, even when she starts kind of growing up and getting her, experience, right? So yeah, I adore her character. So the characters are really well written. The story is well written. The visual effects are this world is so fun. I mean, everything about it makes me feel like I'm in it, especially, and this might, I mean, yes, I love all the scenes of the, broken down buildings and stuff of the cities, but the feel when you're with the Brotherhood, that, with the ships coming down and kind of, it feels like army-esque kind of thing. And I feel like the color changes. It's more grays and, subdued. It's not as red and yellow. It's more like almost blues and grays. Feels just unbelievable. And then the suit of armor is so great. It's practical. You can tell it's practical. But the sound effects that they use to make it feel heavy and clunky every time a step is made and or an arm is lifted, you hear metal scraping. I'll stop talking because I really want to hear from Joe about this, but I love it. I adored it. I demolished the entire thing in 2 nights. I would have done it in 1 night, but I do have to sleep, and I can't wait for season 2. Sets it up really well for the next season too.
My God, Joe, what do you think? Did you play the games, and how did that impact your experience, watching the series?
Yeah, but back in the 90s, I can't remember if I didn't play both 1 and 2. I can't remember which one of the 2 I played. It was Interplay back then. And I remember kind of enjoying it. But Fallout 3 is where they really leaned into this arrested 40s culture aesthetic. And I love that the show explained, because when I play video games, I'm not really a lore guy. Why is there so much talking in this game? I want to collect things and build stuff and shoot stuff.
Agreed.
I don't want to listen, which is why I love when shows like this come along where it's like, okay, tell me a story. The whole conceit that the culture for some reason was arrested in the 50s for like 100 years, and then there was a war. If that's in the games, I never picked that up because I was so busy, fighting Deathclaws and stuff. But so for me, yeah, I played 3. I played 4. Was okay with it. I played Fallout New Vegas, which everybody says is like the pinnacle Fallout game, and I hit a game-breaking bug about 2 days into it and went, nope, I'm done. So I still have to. Everybody says you got to go back and go do New Vegas because it's just so much fun. But so I'm not like an obsessed player of the games, but I do love the aesthetic, and I loved in 3 that you could just be standing in the desert and go, I'll go in this direction, and something heartbreaking or funny or terrifying or something would happen. And I felt like that with the show. The first episode, I was a little concerned. I was like, man, they've nailed the violence, but that underlying goofy sense of humor is not there. And then the second episode was like, there we go. A scene that put a friend of mine off was when the ghoul shoots off what's-his-name's leg, and then the woman's the prosthetic leg that they put on has this mechanical tooth thing. Well, we got to put this on here, and that's almost like a make or break point. Like, if you're going to be with us, you have to accept that this is reality, and someone could survive this and have a final line before they get their head cut off. so all of those little things, all those bizarre little things, as a nod to the video game, I liked. I also liked that Lucy's overview of all of her skills. It's almost like during the player creation in the games where you pick all your perks and your talent points and stuff like that. That was such a cool, clever way to tie it into the video game. And they didn't need, in order to tell a story and set it in the universe, they needed to touch on some stuff, Nuka-Cola and Abraxo, and show us a Yongwai. What's the bear, the mutated bear? It was all paced and doled out in exactly the way that just made my eyes happy. And the way the characters are written were it really was written to set up a season 2. I think they were so smart about that. And normally when it's like, well, we're the arc of a character, when it's just in service of something else that's coming, it can feel a little bit artificial. Watching Lucy become, like in that last episode, become the badass that she's going to be in season 2, it's like, oh, give me more right now. Mm-hmm. I loved Purnell's performance, the naivety. It came through in every scene. And every time she got punched in the face or punched in the stomach or knocked down or drowned or whatever, you could still see this thing in her, like, oh, I'm going to get through this. This is just, if people do this because they're just not listened to, and if everybody got a fair shot, then the world would be a better place. That kind of super naive vault dweller thing, she really embodied that. And it wasn't until the end, seeing her mother, that it like broke her. It's like, oh, she's a wastelander now, and that's kind of what happens in the games. Is you leave the vault as this naive character with no talents, and you eventually get your ass kicked. And it made it feel like the game, but also telling a really good story with really great characters. And I agree about I have some things to say about the visual effects. I think we're extraordinary in this.
Yeah, the production design alone, being married to whatever was going on, with the VFX, just incredible. Like, it's just floored me how well they matched the tone, the humor, with the video game. Like, it's weird over the last maybe 2-3 years how much better everyone's gotten at adapting video games. For decades and decades, everyone was terrible at adapting video games, and then suddenly, like, the light switched on, like, you know what, we can tell a story. And I don't know if it's just because the right people weren't wanting to adapt them, and therefore you got kind of people who were like, here's a hot property, we can sell it, just let me. And then you have, I don't want to name names here, but whatever, the Resident Evil series, for instance, like, that is never been done. Not one single, one of those has been done with the depth that you could do that show, or those movies. Mm-hmm. And then here comes Fallout. I saw from the trailer, I was like, okay, they got the humor. I could see right away off the trailer that they got the humor, but I wasn't sure if they got the violence, but two, if people would understand the humor enough from the trailer to want to watch the show, because it could look too silly and just like, that looks corny. And therefore word of mouth, is going to be a big aspect of the show, I think, because I talked to people and they were like, oh yes, I saw the trailer for that. I don't know, man. I was like, no. Like, those bright blue colors and all that, that's perfect. Like, they understand the video game. They're going to do a good job. Just give it a chance. And whenever the violence came, that was clearly not something that they pushed back from the table on. They indulged. But to that end,
I've got a question for Todd. Oh, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, well, to that end, like, I think one of the big disservices they did for the show was releasing it all at once. Like, you really need to do it 1 week at a time. At the most, you release the first 2 episodes to get everyone really into it. And then you let it build the buzz. This would have been such a cool thing, because Todd, like, we could have gotten you right on from the beginning, and then we all would have had that conversation going, on text threads or on Instagram, and you just build so much more buzz. The longer, you can run this for 2 months. That's 8 weeks of people talking about your show instead of 1 week. And then, it's like, oh, did you watch that? Yeah, it was really good. And that's kind of the end of the conversation for a lot of reasons. One, you don't want to spoil it for someone else, but two, you've moved on to other things. And so it's just hard to make that really. And so I'm hoping for season 2, in addition to a bunch of other things, that they say, okay, we've got everyone's attention now. Let's do 1 week at a time and really build some momentum with the show. Sorry, you were going to ask Todd something.
So, yeah, I was going to, because a friend of mine who never played the games kind of couldn't get into it. So I was really glad to hear, Todd, that you haven't played the games and you were into it. Some of the violence, especially in that second episode, is definitely a call out to the bloody mess perk. Your character, you can have this thing called bloody mess, so that whenever you kill someone, the gore is just extreme, just hilariously extreme. And definitely the Ghoul has the bloody mess perk. So I was wondering, for you, as someone who wasn't from the video game, I'm guessing it just felt like, oh, it's just so over the top. You probably enjoyed it, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, no, it was great. I wanted more of it. But let me be clear. Like, I only wanted more of it after the initial craziness of that first episode with the wedding situation. I was like, okay, now I'm in it. Now I'm in the world. People are getting cut in half by doors, sliced open with swords and stuff, and faces like slashed off, and like, okay, I know where we're living now. So I'm expecting it when she goes out. So it didn't really like affect me after that. It's like I guess of it.
Right.
But I also imagine that that's what that kind of world would elicit. I mean, minus the ghouls, of course, but like would elicit, like these people not caring about the well-being of anybody, just trying to stay alive. Like that's the goal. And if anybody inhibits that at all and they get in the way, they're going to cut them down. I kind of assume that. So yeah, no, I was completely subscribed to it, and honestly probably wouldn't have liked it as much without it. Yeah.
I wonder now, talking about how great video game adaptations have been lately. The Last of Us, Craig Mazin's Last of Us. It's almost like when we first started adapting them, it's like they're two completely different mediums. What we need is a great filmmaker who doesn't necessarily know the game to tell the story, and then that doesn't necessarily work. And then there's that period. I won't name names either, but I think we all know the director who is just a gamer and not a storyteller, and those were not good. You need that unique unicorn combination of someone who's a fan of the game but is also a great storyteller, because easing you into that gore is key for the people who didn't just flip on the bloody mess perk and enjoy it, I think. And that just tells me right there that whoever ran, I don't know who ran this show, but they did a really good job of telling the story in a way that any audience is going to be into.
Yeah, that's such a strange aspect of what's going on behind the scenes, because the created by credit goes to Geneva and Graham, and yet we know like Lisa Joy and Jonathan Nolan were the ones who sold the show. Like they went into the pitch room with the Fallout team and said, hey, we want to adapt this for a show. And they're the reason the show became a show. And Jonathan Nolan directed several episodes and was, by all accounts, very hands-on. He's listed as an executive producer. And generally we hear EP and we think, oh, you funded it and you did nothing. Yeah. Not the case here. This guy was so hands-on, and I assume Lisa Joy as well, that I wonder if it's more of a guild issue. Like there can only be so many credited created bys. And since they weren't in the writer's room necessarily, right, they didn't have any written by or screenplay credits that I noticed. And so, but I would be surprised if they weren't part of those writing meetings on a regular basis. So maybe it was just a generosity thing coupled with, you know what, there can only be so many credits given to a created by. Maybe, again, I'm not really clear. I'm not a TV guy, so I don't know how all that necessarily works. But I think I've heard before that they try to limit how many credits go to certain aspects of show running or even screenplays. That I know. They always try to limit how many writers get credit for a screenplay, just to make sure you don't dilute the power of a screenplay by, because the last thing you want is 15 writers getting credit, and then it's just like the writing isn't that important, so they're trying to make sure they keep their power in the creative process. So it's a good question. Like, I am curious to know how involved those EPs were, especially knowing their background, and stuff that they've worked on. Jonathan Nolan being Christopher Nolan's brother and working on a lot of his projects on top of Person of Interest, and of course Westworld was his big win as far as I'm concerned. Yeah,
and you can imagine that if they're having a conversation for how the whole series is going to be told, and then my understanding is in those TV rooms you break out. So this writer will take episode 1, write it, and then come back to the group, and we kind of work on it. So I'm guessing everybody had a brief when they went off to do the individual writing, because the whole thing worked so well. It fit together.
Just perfect. And I'm sure they spend weeks just sitting in the room together with the whiteboard saying, what's the overall structure? What are the storylines? How can we all make sure it's structured in a way that it builds on each other? Because I think Lucy is the only one who's in every episode. Like, they'll take breaks, right? We take several episodes away from the vault life with her brother Norm. And then we also take breaks from Maximus. There's several episodes without Maximus in it. And so they're finding a way to structure it perfectly so that Lucy's always the engine. Like, she's always our perspective, because that's the video game's perspective. You're always the vault dweller coming out of the vault. And their method of getting her out of the vault is just genius, because every game has its own, like, why do you leave? I've played all of them at this point. Whenever I first watched the series, I played 3, 4, and New Vegas. I think 3 is the best. 4 gets a little bit too much into the build a town stuff. And New Vegas is great, but you can feel it's a shorter version of Fallout 3, and give me it all. But every game has its, like, why are we leaving the vault? What's our end game here? And this was just pure genius. And so I can imagine them sitting in the writer's room and figuring out, okay, she's the engine, and how do we make sure we're telling these stories as they're appropriate to what she's going through? And then, of course, ultimately, how do they all culminate at the end to tell the bigger story of what we're trying? Like, this is masterful storytelling. And I can see them using this and making a movie out of it. Like, there's a version of this that could have been a 2.5-hour movie. That's fantastic. It's still a shadow of what you get here, but all the beats are there. You're getting all these nice momentum moments every 10, 15 minutes that are building on each other. And you're maybe dialing back how much you're talking about some of these other characters. Maximus, probably, the Ghoul probably takes a little bit of a backseat. Norm doesn't exist in the movie version. And yet, it's so much richer for letting you explore all these things. Maybe there's more money in the movie, but there's so much more enjoyment in the show.
Yeah. Speaking of Norm, is an example of a character that didn't really have much of an arc, but the way he ended and the way that actor plays him, where there's this whole inner life of, I'm not cool with this. He's been wise to the ways of the world before Lucy. I can't wait to see what happens with him in season 2, because he's going to do something huge. And I love the way that actor played that character.
Sorry, Todd, you were going to jump in?
Oh, yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. It obviously wasn't.
But that actor,
important. I totally agree with that.
But that actor, Moises Arias, is so good. That dude has not aged at all since Ender's Game.
No.
Like, what the hell? Great work, my friend, because I definitely believe you as, I don't know, her younger brother. It's not entirely clear their age relation, but it works. Like, yeah, you're probably a 21-year-old guy who's just irritated with authority.
Yeah. I almost felt like there was a forced perspective thing. Like, I don't think he's that small. Did they ensmallen him for the role?
Is that the technical term?
Ensmalling.
Ensmallen. I mean, you're in New Zealand, so the embiggened is a term that you guys know because of The Hobbit and stuff, but and Lord of the Rings. But okay, I'm just gonna go with it.
It's funny. He is a smaller guy. Like I remember him in Ender's Game, being significantly smaller, which added to the character he was playing there a whole bunch, especially the way he played it and just his range. If you watch Ender's Game back to back with Fallout, you'll be like, this dude is good, because
really
he's
good,
bringing so much to the table. Yeah, and to Todd's point, man, you were talking about that opening, and I completely agree. What an incredible start to the show. Let's start with the nuke. Like, every other thing I feel like I've ever watched that starts with a nuke is like, theoretically this could happen, or and then rewind 1 week before, right? It's always like the tease instead of this is how we start. We start with a bang. And I love that episode is called The End, and then the final episode is called The Beginning, right? Like, yeah, and
that was what it was. It was the thumb thing that you guys were talking about. I was like, what is the thumb thing? What is that? And then I saw it, and I'm glad you told me to go back and watch it, because it gave me chills at that moment, because I could just imagine him standing there with his little girl, and me standing there watching that happen and being like, well, I'm going to run anyway. It doesn't matter. I'm going to run anyway. I know it's futile, but we're going to do it. It's heartbreaking.
Heartbreaking. And child actors are always a bit sketchy. They might be great in the audition, and then you get on set and the magic is gone. She absolutely destroys that moment. Like, they hang on her for a long time, and she is just there in the moment. God, she's good. I can't wait to see what happens, because we didn't see what became of her and her mother, Barb, because we know they're divorced. That was kind of the joke. The guy was like, where'd all that money go? Alimony, probably. And so we know that they're not together anymore. And so we got to see how they break up and what that ultimately means and looks like for him. There's so much. Yeah. So great start to big spectacle. It's attention grabbing, drops your jaw, and it also sets the stage for the world that you're inheriting, right? The Fallout world. And it's also really nice because that explosion goes off, and like Todd said, you see everyone running for the hills, but you also immediately see the fighting for resources that starts to happen, right? Not letting someone into your vault. And this is your friend, and suddenly you're punching them and you're pushing them and you're effectively killing them, to save your resources for you and your family. And so you can immediately see the impact of what the nuclear explosion has on everyone around it. Freaking amazing. God, chills is right. I'm going to dive into some character stuff, and y'all feel free to jump in as always. But obviously, please.
Just piggybacking on those explosions. So I thought they were super convincing. I don't know how real they are. I have never seen an atom bomb explode. My entire reference for how those look is from stock footage and from movies. I love the idea of the silent flash, and then that moment of tension was really, really well told. But it kind of... so I don't know if you guys heard a lot of the conversation around the atom bomb explosion in Oppenheimer. I felt like a lot of people were not super fair about the approach to that, because it said, well, we didn't see that mushroom cloud, that silhouette. I have to be honest, in the theater, I felt like the camera POV was like inside the explosion milliseconds after the implosion, and I was just gripped. The fact that I didn't see a giant mushroom cloud didn't matter at all to me. I think some people missed that. Some people were like, all we saw is a slow motion gasoline explosion. To me, I felt like I was pushed right in. In this case, you couldn't, I mean, there's no point in doing that. You're not inside a character's head who's living some intimate moment. We need this threat, and those explosions looked great, and the way that they painted the threat with the light, and then the shockwave coming out, and the glass, and all that sort of stuff, I thought it was so well done. One of my favorite atom bomb explosions in any movie, and the fact that like 3 more happened after that first one.
Just gonna say that it was like they could have left it at 1, and then we'd be like, oh, this one event was catastrophic, but they didn't. They added more as the horse is running down the road. We see 2 more go off, or 3 more, and you're just like, oh my god, this is way bigger than that one. So
and they set up,
and then they cut, and then you're instantly like, you understand multiple have gone off a lot
Yeah.
of places because you see multiple there. It's great
And
point.
they paid off that taking the time to say, okay, so you're looking at that, oh, that one's way too close, we're dead, and then one of those three is like right next door.
Right
so
there.
the threat is just like, oh my God, we're all gonna die. It's so good. It paid off so well.
It's so good. And speaking of the Trinity test, I bought this photography book a couple days ago, and I'm starting to study more photography, and I'm doing a series of self-portraits. And the Trinity test apparently only has one color photo that survived, and in this book they have that photograph of the explosion in color, and it's just but I completely agree with you in like it really didn't matter. That was never entered my mind. It was just I felt it. And here they still have that impact of you still feel it even though you're seeing it, but because of the perspective that they've laid so heavily into, not just with the daughter and the father, but also with the thumb, and now you have tension being built based on is it your thumb or my thumb, right? And now we're like, we're not sure how to measure this exactly. Is that too close? All right, and so they're just completely nailed everything you want out of that first scene. You feel
that one was way bigger than my thumb.
And it was your point about the little girl is incredible, Wes, because the way that's so something that a child would ask, because the child knows this is bigger than my thumb. That means this is really, really bad. But maybe he meant his thumb, and he has a bigger thumb than me. Hopefully, hey, Dad, you meant your thumb, right? It felt very, it was almost hopeful, ignorantly hopeful that maybe what I thought as a child was incorrect. Can you, Dad, can you make it better by this being smaller than your thumb? That's what I mean by that. That shows something that a little kid would assume. It's great writing.
So
just
good.
great.
It is. It really is. Okay, so let me dive a little into Lucy and then the exposition, because there's that line of exposition that I'm so excited about. And y'all are going to think I'm so dumb.
I can't wait.
It's so good. Because I geek out over really dumb things. This is absolutely one of them. But before we get there, let's talk about Lucy, because her arc is all about trying to not change, right? It's so incredibly interesting to watch someone try to not change, as opposed to someone who's just failing, who's trying to do better and they just can't. Those are always good, but seeing someone that's ultimately kind of perfect, like Lucy is this really idealistic person who believes the best and is really talented. So it's not like she's a loser and therefore, she's trying to get over one by not changing anything. It's like she is great and she is hopeful and she is trying to do the right thing. And now let's surround her with the greatest contrast that we can possibly make and trap her in a corrupted world where everyone is fighting for survival every day, every minute. So everyone is constantly testing her moral character. Great, and go. And so in episode 4, titled The Ghouls, the Ghoul, Cooper Howard, the Ghoul gives her a thesis statement, right? Whenever she's so angry at him, and he tells her, "I'm you. Just give it time." That's a thesis statement. He's challenging her morality that very moment. And so now she has to rebut. And they do in that same episode moments later, right? And Lucy's rebuttal is that she saves the caged ghouls. One of his own, right? She's like, "No, I'm going to save them." And she saves the ghoul. And of course, she tells him there, "I may end up looking like you, but I'll never be you. Golden rule, motherfucker." And then she walks off. And so they give her an edge. Okay, maybe she's adapting to the world, but she is not changing who she is on the inside. So she's finding an edge without, completely abandoning her ethical, philosophies. And then, of course, what's really nice about the button of that episode is the ghoul, takes his hit. He gets up, he goes inside, and what does he do? He watches one of his old films. And because this is episode 4, we'd already seen in whatever episode 2 or 3, that the scene that he's now watching, where he says "Feo," whatever, right? The scene where we see him filming it, and he doesn't want to shoot his co-star. He's like, "This is my buddy," and now we're watching the movie what did he end up doing? He does end up killing his co-star in the film, which he felt strongly against. And that was his first moral compromise, which is a great button to end on because it's a juxtaposition of her refusing to compromise and us witnessing him seeing his first moral compromise. And then, of course, the whole series is about juxtaposing who he was with who he is now. Like, could it be more different? This, good-looking Hollywood star versus this ghoul who's just killing teenagers and without a blink, or second thought. Like, so I love that, the contrast there is right in front of you to witness. Then in episode 5, Lucy, this one's titled The Past, she's having trust issues, but she's still hopeful to find trustworthy people. And we see this played out over a couple of scenes, right? She saves Maximus from the bugs eating him, which is a really nice moment. I don't feel like too often where it feels earned, where you're watching a woman save a dude, and it's a badass dude. Like, Maximus is no joke, but he needed saving. And guess what? She steps in and she does it. But she's also having trust issues. And that's what she tells him. I'm having trust issues lately. But she has radiation sickness. And she needs Radaway, which is another great callback to the game. God, they just nail it. Like you said, they time it in a way that it's all organic and it's necessary to that moment of the story. Abraxo. And so she needs Radaway, and therefore she needs to trust him. And even though she's having trust issues, she does. And what happens? The Knight Titus, right, who is not his name, he introduces himself. I'm Knight Titus. So he's already lying to her. She's having her trust violated, even though she doesn't know it. And he also doesn't tell her that he's looking for the head. But she does suss it out, and she doesn't hold it against him. So she's still holding on to her ethics and not holding it against everyone up there. And it's a nice dramatic irony, though, with us knowing that he's not who he says he is, even though he has no reason to distrust her. But he can't. He's having his own trust issues. And it's a great dramatic irony for the viewer, thinking that she's now wrong to be trusting people because we see her naivete, even though she doesn't. It's great. And then I think it's that same episode where they're crossing the bridge and she convinces everyone to throw their hands up in peaceful passing. And her reward for that is they attack and they get themselves killed. Titus gets shot. She's not very well rewarded for once again trying to trust, surfies. And it's just not going her way. And I also just love that scene. If you just watch Ella Purnell throughout this series, you can tell, I believe she's staying very on script and she's doing so much to flesh out every single moment. And she's giving great dramatic pauses without making it necessarily feel like a dramatic pause. Like soap opera TV. She's not doing that. She's fleshing it out with these little moments of, I'm thinking, okay, here's what we're going to do. Right. And there's so much happening under the surface of, do we trust people? How do I get everyone out of this? Okay. I got to figure out there's no good. I got it. And it's just beautiful looking at her find these moments that are in the dialogue to be discovered, but aren't necessarily obvious. Like as an actor, a line is just a line, here's what we're going to do is just a line in text. Nowhere does it say she furiously thinks and steps, away from Titus and she's separating and she's creating a barrier and she's buying time. Like she's doing this. She's reading all this into the script. And maybe some of it's a suggestion from her director, but probably not. I think if you're Jonathan Nolan, you step back and let brilliant people be brilliant. You have Walton Goggins, who has been crushing it for the last 25 years, going unrecognized, and Ella Purnell, who's way beyond her time already. Like she deserves so much more than what she's gotten, and I'm hoping this really puts her on top. And yeah, so trust your actors whenever you hire the right actors. My God. And then episode 6, The Trap, which is a great play on what the trap is, because we're in Vault 4 now. And we're discovering this society that feels like they're hiding something. And the trap feels like, even though that's titled for the episode, it feels like we're talking about Vault 4, when in reality, we're talking about what's going on in the past. There's another trap. And in Vault 4, it's a really nice test of her ability to trust people, because she's been abused up to this point. Every time she's trusted someone, she got let down. And here she is being confronted with her people now. These are Vaulties. And all you got to do is trust them. Nope. You know what? I've learned my lesson. Don't trust anyone. And of course, she's ready now to not trust. And I love that the way this starts to play out is what's normal to her is suspicious to Maximus, because they're sitting at the table and he's like, something's wrong here. She's like, what are you talking about? You're in the safest place in the world, a vault. He's like, nah, everyone is smiling. Something is wrong.
Whenever someone's nice to you.
Yeah.
Not good.
And it's, I just, because you're talking about this vault, what's the guy's name? With the Cyclops guy.
The Overseer, yeah.
Okay. This is a good example of why Lucy's character is so good. How she plays it so good. He's just as nice. He's nicer, right? But it feels wrong. It feels like it doesn't feel like her. You know, she sits there in the clip you played proper and says, I've got this and I've done this, and she's, you know, I go for walks with my dad and I watch movies with my dad and, you know, whatever. But it's out of this kind of innocence where her happiness and you know, flightiness are. But this guy, this Overseer guy, it's just as happy, it's just as nice and kind, but it's not. There's something else. It just feels weird and wrong in all the ways. And obviously he does a great job acting to be that way as well. We got to feel like there's something else. This is a cult. This is some kind of cult thing. When are they going to bring out the Kool-Aid? Because something's happening. But anyway, that just goes to show her incredible acting as well, because they're both, you know, supposed to be conveying similar things, but in very different worlds.
Yeah, the combination of the writing, the performances, because he is really amazing. Like, he is crushing those scenes. Combined with the visual effects and the cinematography and the music, like, those things all come together in harmony, because when we meet him having one eye, we know is wrong. Like, if you've been in a vault, you haven't been exposed to radiation. You shouldn't be having these mutations. Therefore, you're lying, is what we assume. And the writing is so good, and it's a thin line to walk this line of, we're holding back information without making you feel cheated for it at the end of it. And they walk it perfectly. Like, that's a tightrope.
Great point. And
whenever he starts talking and they use the cue the music, and then they also cue these close-ups on him and reverse cutting to her. Oh my God. And their performances, and his just laughing like, I know, can you believe those surfies? And he's just so indignant.
So good.
He's not the weird one. And he puts on his glasses. Is so good. Why are you wearing glasses?
I mean, I think that Doctor Strange should take a page from how they did the eye here. I think this is, you know, the CGI. I really want to know what you think, Joe, about the CGI for that. I feel like it was like off, but like off in a way where it's supposed to feel off. But, you know, to give him a brow, and it's under the brow. You know, it wasn't like in his forehead. It was... He had a brow line, and it was under the brow, so it felt like almost like in shadow. You know, his eye was in shadow, and I kept looking like,
good point.
I can't look away from this thing.
There were a couple of mids where I felt like it was hard to pick up the eye. It almost came across as like a smudge, and then when I looked at it, oh yeah, there it is. But I think the entire, what didn't get lost is the unsettlingness of it. You know, our human brain used to seeing the two eyes. What is that?
That's a good way.
I really thought that was great.
Fantastic. And so she finds that, you know, wrong, right? Maximus is like, everyone's smiling, this is messed up. And she's like, that guy is mutated. And Maximus is like, that's normal. What are you talking about? And so the things that are normal to each of them work so perfectly with the story that they're telling, as well as the characters that they've built. That's really just efficient and magical, like, writing to introduce those things as they do. And then episode 7, the radio. Maximus wants to take Vault 4's fusion core, And he tells Lucy, because she doesn't want him to. She's like, no, you can't kill them. He's like, I need this. I need this if I'm going to help you. And he tells her, you really want to give the fusion core back if it means you can't save your dad. And she says, if my dad found out I destroyed an entire community to save him, that'd break his heart. I can't. Mm-hmm. And that's so good of writing for a number of reasons. It's a great cue because he is trying to get what he wants by manipulating her for what she wants and using it against her. Like, you want this other thing, you can't have it if I don't get what I want. And so this is a really great moment to test her resolve, to choose her ethics or her personal goals, because she can't have both. Will she change who she is to get what she wants? No. And of course, that also cues us to think about her dad as a paragon of virtue, which he is through her eyes, which sets up the betrayal in the very next episode perfectly. Yep. Like, it's just great storytelling.
Her face when you are the guy that would have agreed to kill the whole vault. She's so betrayed. She played it so well.
Amazing. And so her whole arc of trying not to change is beautiful. And we might touch back on that here in a minute. By contrast, the Ghoul, he's also trying to not change. He's trying to be a badass who survives, and he knows what it takes to survive in this new wasteland. And he's lost faith in humanity, but he is being a little infected with Lucy. As much as he might be infecting her, he's also being infected with a sliver of hope. And I love his character reveal in episode 3. Whenever he's got her tied up, he's dipping her in this gross water, and he's doing this torture monologue. And I loved so deeply this torture monologue because I'm always torn about how much damage we can do with the stories we tell in media. But I think this is one very real thing that we've heard, the world with, making people believe you can torture information out of people. And I love, 24 and all kinds of movies and TV shows. It's all about torturing someone to get the right answer. And here he is, he's queuing up this torture. And he's like, they did a study about that. And I'm just holding my breath. I was like, please, please, please. And then he gets to the end of it and he's like, you know what? It doesn't work. And yet people still do it. And it's just such a great moment for a lot of reasons. One, I just love that someone on film is finally acknowledging the inefficient and ineffective use of torture. It just doesn't work. It's being acknowledged for once on a popular show. But it's not just that for its sake. It's also leaning into his lack of faith in humanity. Like, this is a complete character moment of like, this is what people are. This is why I act the way I act. And he also does.
And it's also, it's a brilliant bit of misdirection to set up the joke. Oh, I'm not torturing you. I'm using you. It's so well written, because I fell for it completely. Like, oh, we're talking about torture. Oh, so good.
So good. Yeah. Walton Goggins, damn you. Nice. So let's get into the exposition. And the first thing is episode 1, the end, is after we're walking with Lucy down the hallway, and she throws out this line. So dumb. This isn't the one, but I love it anyway. After 10 years of cousin stuff, I'm excited for the real thing. Like, it's such a great... It's hilarious. It's revealing of the humor and the type of world you're entering into. It's something you really want at the front end, because if you can't get into this kind of joke, this isn't going to be the show for you. But it's also laying in all kinds of other layers, right? Genetic diversity is a really great concept to propel the story forward. That's the whole reason the story kicks off, is they open up Vault 32 because they need more genetic diversity in their vault. And it's logical. And it's world building effortlessly, and also creating tension for later on, right? Her relationships, also her just going up topside. Like, is exposure to the overworld going to be a thing? So there's all kinds of little layers of tension that they're adding into just that one line that they keep building on top of. But whatever, the wedding goes down poorly, and they discover, her dad is being kidnapped and taken, and we need to go rescue him. And so Lucy wants to go outside and find her dad. And she's asking the council for permission. Like, we need to go do this. The counselor shoots her down without a second thought. And this is where my favorite line comes in. She turns to her brother and he immediately says, they don't want to find dad. If they did, they wouldn't get to be in charge. It's a very simple line. And there's so many things that I love about it. It's excellent exposition. For one, it's highly motivated. He wants to find his dad. This isn't forced exposition where it's like, oh, guess what? You need to go outside, and go find dad. It's so motivated. This isn't forced. It's perfectly in keeping with their characters, for one. It's exactly how his brain works, as Joe was pointing out. Like, this guy is a suspicious kind of guy. And she needs to hear it because it's exactly not how her mind works. She assumes good things about people, not devious things. She needs to hear that. And they've also already demonstrated, I think at this point, he's already taken a peek at Vault 32. So we kind of already know that not just is he an outsider, but he's got that suspicious nature already. Cool. It's also appropriate timing, right? She just lost an argument with the council to go outside. So it's a natural moment to inject this thought. And it sets up a tension and motivation of the Vault leadership battle that we see later on, and why it's such a big, important thing that he noticed, and why he keeps diving into it, right? Vault 31. And so there's that battle that's going on. We already inherently understand why they're having a fight for the leadership or overseer. It's also a really good motivation for them to not want to open their doors and to leave the vault. And so much already good happening in there. And it also sets up her action. It pushes her straight into action. It propels the story forward, because now, okay, well, if I cannot get them to do a thing, I have to do that thing myself, and therefore I got to leave. And it's all stemming from one character who has a want, and he also has a plan to get what he wants. He knows exactly what to say, who to say it to, and it's nothing but that. There's no fluff to it. It's just one quick line. They're never going to let you, they don't want to find him because it's against their own motivations. It's brilliant, and it probably felt very intuitive. I doubt they labored too much over that line, even though I think it's doing just an incredible amount of lifting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you have anything to add, by all means.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about, single-use characters are really, really hard. When you have this is kind of a road movie in a lot of ways. You're just going to have single-use characters all over the place. And a lot of times they can really take the air out of the story. But I think what they did here was load exposition onto those single-use characters to teach you something about the world. The Doctor, you learned, like, not only is that guy going absolutely insane, but, snake oil salesmen are a thing out in the world that you have to be careful of. I had another couple of examples. I can't remember them, but I really felt like their single-use characters were fun and taught you something about the world. And they that was the other thing I was going to say. The guys in the organ parts factory, you're really leaning on your actors, your day players, to make those interesting characters. They really did a good job casting people there and just fitting that world building exposition into these single-use characters. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I completely agree, and I it's the kind of thing that makes me want to rewatch it just for those characters, because it's all so effortless on the outside. Like she runs into that one guy in his cloth diapers, who is like offering to let her live with him, and it's just such a wonderful character, and it's perfect in the Fallout world. I guarantee that guy is in some of these games, and he's just, his walk, the way he kind of hunches over, and it's just but he is also providing her some exposition, I'm sure. If nothing else, he tells her where Philly is, like, oh yeah, that's Philly over there, but people die over there. She's like, oh really? Like, yeah, my aunt died there once. And then and
you want to come live with me? I'm sick. I'm real sick.
And everyone is crazy to some level in this movie. And finding out everyone's kind of specific flavor of crazy is part of the fun. But yeah, I agree, man. I think the one-off characters are always there to serve a purpose. Yeah, and part of me wonders if we'll ever circle back to some of these, because now you've got these free characters. You can kill them if you want. If like, oh, we're not going to get anything else. You know what? Let's find a fun way to kill them that moves the story forward. I don't know. Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me. The last little expositional thing is with Maximus. In episode 6, when he's in Vault 4, the Vault lady says he'll feel better after a hot shower. And Maximus says, when you say hot shower, what does that mean exactly? Like, I love that. It's so motivated because he's just responding to what she said. And she's trying to make him feel better, so she has a motivation to say it in the first place. But it's also revealing of his life. And it's setting us up for his response to a life of luxury. Someone who doesn't know what a hot shower is definitely is going to be happy in a vault. And so we watch him start, reveling in his life here, and it's setting us up for the sequence, whenever he doesn't want to leave. And so we get to the end, right, where he's tasting the oysters, and it's giving him this weird confusion, and he walks out and he's like, hey, he's kind of aggressive about it. Yeah. He's like,
what is this?
What is this? And it's just further extending his life of lack. And it's setting us up for why he's so conflicted about helping Lucy, or distrusting Vault 4, right? He has every selfish reason to ignore the signs of what could be going on in Vault 4. He's like, no. And I love that he's eating popcorn, and his idea of entertainment is a waterfall.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So good.
And he just watches it. He never understands that you can watch TV shows and movies.
And when he saw them dragging her away,
didn't have to do. Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say when he saw them dragging her away, and he's like had to make the decision to put the popcorn down.
God damn it!
He took one last bite, and he's like, "Oh, here we go." But he did it.
Yep.
Yep. Anyway, go ahead, Joe.
And he played it really well too. That he didn't have to do much. You could an actor could easily have overdone it with the reaction to the caviar. It was all happening in his head. He played it really
great
nicely.
point.
Yeah, he really leans into being still. Like, the less he does, the more impact and comedy. I was dying over his scenes. Like, he had me rolling. Mm-hmm. I couldn't believe how much laughter I was getting out of him just trying to do as little as possible. The slippers, all of it. He just crushed it. So, yeah, all the exposition, for the most part, is phenomenal. And they have little moments where, sometimes you just got to say a line. But it's pretty minimal. And even in those moments, it still feels in keeping with the tone and the spirit. And so it never feels belabored at all to me. And one of my favorite things is at the end of the show, episode 8, everything dovetails perfectly. Like, it is magic, right? All the threads come together. Moldaver begins revealing Lucy's dad's secret. And then Norm's investigation immediately, we cut to him opening Vault 31 and discovering everything that's in there. And then Cooper snooping in the past, the flashback, leads him to eavesdrop on Barb's conference. And then Lucy's dad describes the horrors of war that he was protecting her from. And they immediately cue Maximus and the Brotherhood of Steel coming in and weighing lace to everyone. Like, it's all just perfectly synced together for everyone making their points of their worldview. It's just beautiful. And of course, we get to the end, and there's that question: can Lucy's spirit? I think is what they're implying or asking is, can her spirit survive the ultimate betrayal of her trust with her dad? Right? Being so betrayed by the one person who is this paragon of virtue to her. And so we're asking now, who is Lucy going to be in season 2? And then Moldaver. God, what a great turn to have Barb looking like this good person, and Moldaver being built up to be this ultimate evil. And then that turn at the end to see them. And there's so many little under the radar things that they're doing that they don't feel necessary to call out. Maybe they will in season 2 or something. But for season 1, we have 2 women of color who are being good and bad, and then reversing those roles. Like, it's so much easier to try to play into someone's race or gender, and they use that against us to some degree, but then use it against us again. Like, it's such a wonderful way to say, we don't really care. This is just a good story. I think these are just good actors, and we're going to use the best actors we have access to. And if, it leads you down the wrong road, that's on you. But ultimately, it's not going to factor into anything whatsoever. It's just a really good story. And to that end, also, I love that as we finally get a hero in this world, Moldaver, right? Someone who's actually trying to save the world. Like, to some degree, Lucy is, but it's in her own narcissistic way. She doesn't know that, though. This is just what she was told. In the same way, Coop was a man of his time, and we can talk about that. She's a person of her environment as well, but Moldaver knows better. And we finally have someone who's looking to save the world. She gets cold fusion. That's been her goal. And then she dies. And now she's trying to pass the torch to Maximus. And so that's the next question for Maximus is, what does his season 2 look like? Does he pick it up? Does he run with it? Or does he keep, kind of looking for approval from a group of people who clearly don't deserve to hold that place in the first place? I also love, I made this joke with my buddy Ian. He's a black guy, and he dates a lot of white girls. And I was like, hey man, how'd it feel to finally see a black guy end up with the cute white girl? He's like, you know what? It felt good, man. And he wasn't like a badass. He wasn't like, he's a nerd. He's a geek, and he gets the girl.
Yeah.
Like, that's nice.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah. Says that's the biggest, awesome. Nerdiest geek I know, but right. Like. Also jacked, huge dude.
He really
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
ex Mississippi State athlete. Oh. What do you make of all that, Joe? Like the dovetailing, the questions leading into season 2. I mean, there's a lot to bite on there.
Yeah, the passing the torch to Maximus is just one of the things that it's just like, no, I want to see what happens there. It's so good. Setting up a season 2. I loved the bold choices, the bold world building choices of the writing team. The idea that the whole history, all the way back to Fallout 3, of the Vault Tech yellow and gold color scheme is because the cowboy actor, those were the colors that looked good on him. The guy who was going to promote this on TV. So, I love that. I really, really felt like Lucy came into her own when that moment that she has with Goggins when, I think they set up the expectation. She's not going to shoot him. She's going to shoot her mother. But it was just nice to just see that moment happen. Yeah. And now, I don't know, she just leveled up there. She's something new now. And we don't get to see quite what it is until the next season. So the way that whole thing came together at the end there was just brilliant writing.
And that they don't really, as somebody who didn't play the game, explain the Ghoul situation. I don't get any explanation. I just know that they dig this guy up every 100 years or something. I don't know, every 30 years. And now he goes on a killing rampage, and then what, does he go back into the ground? Like, I have zero idea. It doesn't matter. I never
picked up from playing the games. Are ghouls, like, eventually they're long-lived and eventually they all turn feral? If that's in the games, I was too busy playing the game to really figure that out. I just knew, ghoul, bad guy. Oh no, this one's a good guy. You can talk to him and buy things from him. I love the way that's all fleshed out in the show.
For sure. I remember that my playthrough Fallout 3, there's a really good storyline because up until a certain point, you're only running into feral ghouls. And then you meet one who's actually a regular, normal guy who just happens to be a ghoul. You then get pushed into making a big moral question. The game and the series do such a good job of laying that out of, you start as one person, an idealist, and then you're being forced to make moral decisions. And so
tough ones.
Yeah, tough ones. And I've been going back and playing the original Fallouts now, Fallout 1 and 2, the isometrics.
Oh, nice.
Which I noticed they used in the show. whenever he unlocks the fusion, his password is 10/10/97, which is the release date of Fallout 1, by the way.
Whoa, that's dope.
No way.
That's pretty cool.
Oh, that's a cool little Easter
That's
egg.
Jonathan Nolan.
Yeah.
You know?
Todd, I got a question for you and then a couple for Joe. And this is stepping back a little bit from Fallout per se, but I'm curious about your user experience on Amazon Prime. The navigation of it always feels like a flea market. Opening up Prime just feels like I'm being flooded with like flyers and people yelling at me, and then a bargain bin that I have to rifle through to find the thing that I want. And broadly speaking, is this? Do you enjoy going on Prime, or is it like I need a reason to go on Prime?
Yeah, I need a reason. It's and the reason is because I never know what is free, or what is going to cost me, and so I'm just like, you know what? I don't want to get my hopes up and then like, oh, I got to pay $4 to watch this. No, I'm just going to go to HBO, or I'm going to go to, like Netflix, or I'm going to, see what else is on that I've been meaning to watch, but not gotten to yet. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
But yeah, the experience is also that because there's a bunch of stuff for rent and there's free stuff and there's a bunch of stuff to buy. I have to have a reason to go on there. I go there, I look for the thing, I find it, and I watch it. Sometimes I got to rent it, but I know that I'm going to have to rent it when I go there. If we're going to do a movie and on the podcast, and I know, okay, well, it's streaming on Amazon and it's going to be $4 because I look on Just Watch. We use justwatch.com and see where stuff is playing. Then I go there to watch that thing. I don't ever browse around. I don't ever see what else is there. It is a mess. I think you put it perfectly. It's like the bargain bin at Walmart where you just, oh, what's in here for $2 today? Oh my God, you got, Turner and Hooch? Sure, $2. Why not? But that's not, I feel like it's so antiquated nowadays, and they could do something, even if it's just a little bit cleaner of an interface. You know what I mean? Everybody is so used to the cleanliness of Netflix. I mean, you look at Disney Plus, even it's Netflix, just a different skin. And so you get on there and you know how it works, and then you just use it. But obviously everything there is, it's free because you pay for a membership, and yeah.
Yeah, and just trying to rewatch the show for me was a big pain in the ass. Like, they don't do a good job of letting you reset the episode. You have to like resume and then try to replay it, and then it restarts.
I have this complaint about all the streamers is there are certain controls that are first-class citizens. Play and pause, absolutely, first-class citizen. Rewind, fast-forward, first-class citizen. Watch from the beginning has to be a first-class citizen in every streaming platform. It is unbelievable the amount of time I've spent just watching the playhead scroll back, scroll back. Needs to be there.
But I will say that I think Amazon Prime might have the best streaming quality compared to like Netflix. There's so much banding because of all the compression that Netflix does. I don't remember seeing any banding or artifacts while watching Fallout. Like,
yeah,
that's a really good point.
I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Excellent.
And by banding, you mean like in the blacks where you can see, like different shades of black.
Yes,
like they're kind of blocked off. Like, yeah, okay.
It's like a gradient instead of like just smooth, normal transitions that you see in real life.
Fade to black,
which is why Blu-rays and DVDs is what I tend to try to watch. So, Joe, I was wondering if you could give me the broad overview. Like, there's a lot of visual effects in Fallout. How would a visual effects company per se go about scoping a visual effects shot? What does that look like?
So I haven't been involved in a lot of the client discussions, but my understanding is a lot of it is has to do with what do we have to build? Do we have so there's layouts, which is basically building the set. There's models, which is either characters or a truck or something like that. And a lot of the way that bidding is done is how close is it going to be to the camera? Because obviously something that's right up next to the camera needs lots and lots and lots of detail, but something that's far away doesn't need that much detail. So the initial bidding is based just on the script and what are the things we're going to have to build and how long is it going to take, and that sort of thing gets done. But then during production and even during post-production, creative choices are made where you could end up with, this thing that was 2 miles away from the camera, now it's right up next to the camera. And so, you have to have a talk with the client. Is it worth doing that camera move? Because an artist is going to need to come in here now. We're going to need more texture data, more geometry, that sort of thing. So my infinite admiration goes out to our producers at the studio. I think that is a really tough skill, knowing the pipeline well enough and knowing script breakdowns well enough to go, this is going to cost this much time and so this much money. There's a whole science to that I only get to see glimpses of.
Wow. Very cool. My last question is very not related. This is a game that hasn't been out in over a decade. I get so frustrated with game development turnaround times. And you've let me bitch to you and kindly nodded but give me your rebuttal. My problem is it's been 12, 14 years since the last Elder Scrolls Skyrim came out. Now part of this is a Bethesda issue, but it doesn't seem to be getting that much better with outside of EA putting out a new Call of Duty. Like, no one does a really good job of turning around a game within a couple of years. Like, it's always these 4 or 5 year roadmaps. And I think it's completely unreasonable. It's dumb. And I want you to give me an accounting for it.
Well, I mean, I feel like, especially in the AAA gaming space, it's always like, well, if we just take this thing that was successful and scale it up, it'll be more successful. And so now you have these, like, there have been so many games I've played in the past couple of years where I'm loving it, and I'm loving it. And it gets to the point where it's like, I'm done. Can we end this now? Even though I've enjoyed it, this needs an ending. And I've got easily 200 more hours of exploring this giant map that you've built. So I don't necessarily think that this map, it's the entire Earth. And it'll take you the same amount of time as it would take you to walk across the Earth to play the whole thing. I don't think just scaling everything up necessarily makes a better experience. And scaling everything up like that just takes more time. You got to build more stuff, and the technology has to evolve, and you need to offload compute into the cloud, and so you need all kinds of technology that we're inventing. Another game with the same exact engine as Fallout 3 was made on would suit me just fine. That scale, I don't need any more. Just tell me another story with those graphics, because they just don't enhance the storytelling. This actually came into clear focus in terms of film. So the studio had this retrospective of Planet of the Apes a couple of weeks ago, and we started with the 1968 Charlton Heston film. And I was laughing because I don't know how long it's been since you've seen that over-the-top performance by Charlton Heston. Like, he had to be doing that on purpose. But for visual effects, there's a sequence where the spaceship crashes through the atmosphere and lands in water. And in 1968, in order to sell that to an audience, you just had to take a camera up in a helicopter and go like this. Okay, that's done. So next, just set up the camera in the lot, point it at the sky, and throw buckets of water in front. It's literally, those are the two shots, and then we're in the water with the scientists. Now you need to see the ship, and you need the camera to be attached to it and get cool shots that would make a cinematographer just go, It's hilarious how little audiences needed. The farther back in time you go, the closer we are to just live theater is all I need, and then my mind will fill in all those blanks. Don't worry about it. I'll suspend disbelief. And the better and better and better visual effects go, the more it's like, I can't even, if I don't have absolutely photorealistic pores and subsurface scattering, I'm taken out of the story altogether. It's kind of weird that visual effects and games have been their own worst enemy in pushing the technology forward. When, man, human beings, we don't need that much to be able to just lose ourselves into a story. The best visual effects are a compelling story, compelling characters, actors who can bring us just brilliant inner lives through their face. Yeah, so to answer your question in the most roundabout way possible, I think it's scale. I think take the scale down. Why does everything have to be the biggest thing ever? I don't know. That works better on a bottom line, but for audience enjoyment and engagement, I just think it needs to be scaled back a bit.
Well, couldn't they make more money if they put out 2 games, like a game every 2 years than one game every 4 years?
That's
right?
what I would think.
It saved 2 years of working on the thing, and they'd be making money while they're making the next one. It's the same.
Next one.
I mean, it's the same thought about like the whole Blumhouse, horror concept that we have. Where why spend $120 million on a horror film or on a film when you can spend right at most $2 million and make 40? You don't have to make $400 million on a movie. You just make 400x whatever that is, and you're good for the next 10 movies. Like it's the same way I guess with games. Like it's a great point, Joe, because part of the reason why it's been hard for, I have a lot of friends who are gamers, and they love these open world games, and I love them too. They're fun. God loves Zelda. It's fun, but sometimes there's just too much to do, and all I want you to do is tell me where to go. I just want to know where to go, because I could go in any direction right now, and then it kind of is just like, am I going to spend the next 8 hours of my life playing, like trying to figure this out? I mean, I will if I love this game and if I love this world and stuff, of course, and that's great. But I would argue, same as you, that even those people would love a directed game, where it's about the story and you're going with the story that already exists rather than building your own. I don't know. Maybe I'm totally wrong.
Well, and you can do open world in that. Fallout 3 is such a great example of that, where it's just like, well, I finished that quest. What do? I'll walk over here, and then something incredible happens. That's how Fallout 3 works. But it's really got to be directed. And there's the whole question of emergent story or a narrative story in massively multiplayer games, like World of Warcraft. The stories that come out of it are the stories of things that happen to you. Oh man, we were fighting this dragon, and I accidentally popped this potion instead of this potion. We all wiped, and it was hilarious. Those kinds of group stories come out of that.
My son is getting into that, by the way.
Oh yeah,
he is.
That's
loves it.
Fun and fine, but a crafted narrative. It's really hard to find a balance between those two things, because both are equally great stories to walk away from a video game experience with. But I just feel like the scale has just gotten way out of control.
Nice, Todd. Final thoughts, man. The Fallout. Anything you hope to see next season? I
so great. I hope to see Lucy come into her own and become what I really hope is that Disney will take a page from how to do female heroes and actually do it right moving forward. Put them in positions where they have to overcome stuff to then earn the ability and the reason to be a badass rather than just being one. But as a particular to Fallout, I'd like to see Lucy come into her own. I'd like to see Maximus be challenged more, because every time he's challenged, he finds out something a little bit about himself too, which is really super interesting. Yeah. And I'd like to see what happens with her dad. So I'm just really intrigued with where the characters go, which tells you that this is a great story, because everything I just mentioned is about character development, which tells you a lot in like just 8 episodes or whatever it was that this did. So yeah.
Nice. Joe.
Not too much. There were a couple of, nothing is perfect. There were a couple of small sequences that didn't quite work for me, or the comedic timing didn't quite land for me, and it might just be a me thing. But it's amazing in a series like that where those things stick out, because the rest of it is just so I'm not even thinking about it. Nothing's taken me out of it. The one thing I had a problem with was when the Raiders were beating up Maximus and he stuck his arm into the suit from behind and crushed the guy's head. What took me out of it was the Raider going, "Ah!" and running away after that happened. It's like, wow, if I don't kill this guy, he's going to do that to me too. I would have preferred that guy to stay in place, keep going, and then Maximus having to struggle to crush that guy's head too, or something like that. But him just going, "Ah!" and running away, I was kind of like, I don't buy it. But like that and maybe two other things were the only things that stood out to me as moments that they're not bad, they just didn't work for me. The rest of it was just such a joy as a Fallout fan to experience.
Yeah, that little moment, I kept waiting because they just dangled that hand right over his head for that whole scene. I was just like, oh, I really want to crush his head. And to see it finally happen, very satisfying.
And it built threat. They set up a threat in the next scene where he was doing that to his new squire. So it still paid off. They
really didn't waste anything.
Yep.
I loved it. Same as you, Todd. There's so many character things I want to see. I want to see what became of his wife and daughter. So I'm really interested in the Ghoul, and I'm interested to see what Lucy does when she sees her dad again. What does that mean to her now? She sounded disappointed that he didn't kill her, or that the Ghoul didn't kill her dad. And now it's like, okay, it's one thing to react that way in the moment, but now she's going to have a lot of time. That's what she said when she approached Moldaver. I've had a lot of time to think about this moment. I even thought about how to stick a grenade inside this guy's neck. And so she's going to have that time again before she catches up with her dad. What is that time going to do to her based on everything she's experienced now? And I also want to see a super mutant. But I don't know if that's this world.
Who doesn't?
Yeah. Nice. What are y'all going to recommend this week?
I'll go first, I guess. So it's weird. I was looking up, some Walton Goggins stuff, and there's some really good stuff. But I just, my family, we don't watch a whole lot together, but we started watching a while back. We started watching Young Sheldon, and whatever, you don't have to like Big Bang Theory. And I think you hate it. I can't remember, but I don't know. I'm pretty sure that Wes hates
absolutely loathe it.
Totally fine. Totally fine. I love it, but it's totally fine. But I started watching it because Simon started watching it. Simon's my son. And then we all started watching it together. And I think because it's set in the South, and his mother's super religious, and his father's just like he's a football coach. And it's just like very my family. Not that my dad was a football coach, but we played football a lot. And very much my family that I grew up in. And the show ended this week. And there were some moments where like we were weeping in it. And
wow.
I don't remember. Yeah, and I don't remember the last time that happened. Simon actually started weeping too. So I'm going to recommend Young Sheldon, but I'm not going to recommend you watch all of it, I guess. I'm only recommending it because I had a wonderful time watching it with my family this week.
Oh,
it's
wonderful.
It's a show that spans multiple years and stuff. So, anyway, so that Young Sheldon.
Nice. What do you got, Joe?
Right on. So I'm going to recommend, there's a 4-part series on YouTube. The channel is called The Movie Rabbit Hole. It's this comper named Jonas Ussing, who he's worked on stuff like RRR and Olympus Has Fallen, lots and lots of experience. He did this brilliant 4-part YouTube analysis of modern visual effects called No CGI is Really Just Invisible CGI. It's a really, really interesting deep dive into film marketing and the way CGI has really been vilified, especially in the press and everybody talking about practical. I was astonished at how much stuff I work in the industry, and stuff that I thought was practical is all completely CGI. But it's not a statement against practical. It's a statement against using the animus that's come up in popular culture to really kind of erase the effort of these artists, the visual effects artists who do just such incredible work. They're incredible artists. So I'm going to recommend no CGI is really just invisible CGI on YouTube.
Nice. If you want more Ella Purnell, I've already recommended Arcane, and she's phenomenal in that. And so I'm going to recommend another show that she's in. It's called Sweetbitter. I forget. I think it's a Starz show, and it's a kitchen drama. At the heart of it, it's just a kitchen drama, but it centers around her. She's the lead, and she is just so good. That was the show that really put me onto her, because I remember liking her a lot. And Never Let Me Go, she played one of the younger kids in there, and to see her growing up and playing and still killing it, and just really like amazing. She's in my like top 10 actors that I would just kill to work with. And so Sweetbitter, it's I think streaming on Starz. Probably you can rent it for this. It's only 2 seasons, which really rubbed me the wrong way. That God, just I hate whoever canceled that show. You're my mortal enemy. And so yeah, it's nice. If you enjoy cooking dramas, that you might enjoy that one. If not, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, stay tuned for next week. We're going to go to the movies and see this new Mad Max saga film called Furiosa. And so stay tuned for that. We'll see what Anya Taylor-Joy is up to. And so if you're enjoying the show, don't forget, subscribe, drop us a review, leave us a note if there's something you want us to cover. And if you want to comment on this episode, you can do that at thepestlepodcast.com/fallout.
We'll need to have Joe come back. Jeez. So much Joe. I love it. The quote of the day today is from Immanuel Kant. You only know me as you see me, not as I actually am. Great.
What do y'all make of that?
Great.
Like, there's a lot going on in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, there obviously I think it is paralleled with a lot of with story in general, right? But you could parallel it with Fallout and look at Lucy. She is a certain way, right? And she has this bubbliness about her, but there is something else about her that we're discovering as we go along this journey with her and with all these characters, but just characters in general in any story and people in general. I went to my neighbor's house today and hung out with them, and everybody was happy and giddy, and it was a wonderful experience. Do I think that they're always like that and that's how they are? No. Am I always like that? No. There is a part of me that no one else will see. Not even my friends, not even my wife, maybe. And same with her. There's part of her that I will never see. There's things that we are made up of, a lot of different things that maybe we don't even know. So I think this is just a universal statement, across that we shouldn't be judging people from what we think about them.
Nice.
Beautiful.
What do you think, Joe?
Yeah, makes me think about the craft of acting. That judging something by the way it looks goes back to our amoeba state. Being able to judge danger that's coming at you by how it looks is just so deeply ingrained in us, and all of civilization almost has been a struggle against that. That stop doing that. That's too basic. It's not nuanced enough. But the craft of acting is, the craft of surfacing what's going underneath through this instrument that we all look at, and how fascinating it is to find out what's underneath rather than just focusing on what's on the surface.
Yeah, I just saw it. I keep meaning to pick up some of his books. Immanuel Kant is like a well-known ethical philosopher, who I really only learned about through The Good Place, which is an amazing show. But you only know me as you see me, not as I actually am. And I mean, I love everything y'all are saying. Like what you see on the outside isn't necessarily everything a person is. And just because that's what you're seeing. It might be in response to you. Like how much of who you're experiencing is because of you and not because of them. Like, you know, you're
Right.
part of the equation. You never know anyone apart from you. You know, there's no way to have a friendship that isn't with you in it. And so there's that aspect of it. And there's also, you are the actions you do. And in relationship to Fallout, there's a whole world of people who probably are doing a bunch of things that they don't think are them. They just think, this is what I need to do. This is a necessity. That's not, Maximus doesn't think that's who he is, right? Whenever he lets that guy die, he didn't think that's who I really am. And so maybe to some degree, it's the inverse. How people actually see you is actually who you are, you know, because that's how you're reacting to the world. That is who Maximus was. He did let that guy die. And we feel mixed about it because that guy was not just a jerk, but he was also threatening to kill Maximus. So how much of that was self-defense? And then we can start to feel ourselves compromising. Like, does that mean it was right to do it? And so this whole world is about asking you these moral, you know, questions and putting it to you, even as you're watching characters go through it, you're judging them during the process. It's interesting. It's great writing. And I love, you know, I love the gray area in life. And so this is definitely my cup of tea. But hearing Immanuel Kant, you know, weigh in about all of that is, I don't know, interesting. That's all I got.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, I absolutely adored this episode. So glad to see you, Joe, my friend, and always glad to have you on the cast, man. Welcome you back anytime. Maybe next week with Furiosa. I'm not even going to lie. I would love
Just have me on for 2 seconds to go, oh! And then
yeah, exactly. Like let's point out the moments where we hear Joe and Heather. But anyway, thank you for joining us, man. Always love having you on. And thank you guys for listening. And if you can, please review us, subscribe, and wherever you get your podcasts, it all helps a lot. And if there's a film that you'd like to see us pick apart, please let us know what that is. Who knows? Maybe one day we will actually get to it. Until next time, I'm Todd.
I'm Wes.
And I'm Joe.
Go watch some movies.
I love the Pip-Boy. The Pip-Boy was just this, I can't believe how beautifully they made it and so clunky. It's such a ugly piece of equipment and absolutely works perfectly.
Yeah, this giant computer on your wrist, it's just hilarious.